You're listening to the Big Ideas Podcast with Ashlee Ilg. Tune in for honest conversations as we pursue bold dreams, redefine what is possible, and empower the next generation to live big. You'll hear stories that prove over and over again that just because something wasn't a part of our plan doesn't mean it won't be used for our good. Whether you're already an entrepreneur, you dream of becoming one, or you're raising the next generation of entrepreneurs, this podcast is for you. There's no time to waste on your big ideas. So let's get started. Here's your host, Ashlee Ilg.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Big Ideas Podcast. I'm Ashlee Ilg and I am so excited to dive into the topic for today's episode. It's all about building the CEO habits and mindset. And I think sometimes this topic can get kind of brushed under the rug or maybe even watered down a little bit when people start talking about business and how to be successful. And, a lot of the conversation just revolves around strategies or profit and marketing techniques and things like that, where as I've learned through, again, 20 plus years of business, scaling and growing, several seven-figure businesses in different industries, no matter what the business is, no matter what you're growing, no matter what your product is, no matter what your brand is, this particular piece can make or break all the difference. And it's all about, like I said, your mindset. If you're a parent listening to this or watching this, even if you're a student, I would highly recommend a book by Carol Dweck. The book is called Mindset, and it will deep dive into this whole growth versus a fixed mindset. And it will literally make all the difference and be probably pretty convicting, maybe in some areas. And so the book is amazing. It's definitely a foundation to the way we grow our businesses. And like I said, it's the second episode of this whole series, and it's also the second chapter of the Future CEO Playbook because it's so important. I did not want to just throw it in at the end or kind of slide it in or tuck it between other pieces. This is a real front and center topic to growing a long-term successful business. And again, it doesn't really matter what the business or the product is, all about your mindset, how you are resilient and overcome and pivot. And literally the way you think about things is the way that things are going to be. And I just can't stress that enough. And so this episode, like I said, we're just going to deep dive into how are we thinking about things? What shifts can we make? How will that make a difference? And what kind of habits can we start changing now that will launch our business and launch that CEO mindset long term? Hey friend, quick pause before we keep going. As you know, this season of the Big Ideas Podcast is all about building ideas, confidence, leadership, and real-world skills our kids can actually use. And if you've been listening thinking, wow, I wish I had something like this when I was growing up, I did too, which is why I created the Future CEO Playbook. It's a hands-on guide designed to help kids think like problem solvers, build and test ideas, understand money, communicate clearly, and take initiative with faith, purpose, and creativity at the center. You can order the spiral-bound workbook at ashleeilg.com or the paperback version on Amazon. Both are designed to be worked through interactively, so kids can write, plan, build, and reflect as they go. If this season has you inspired, the playbook helps you put it into action. All right, let's get back to the show. So the first questions I really want to ask you to think about, and again, make sure you've got your notebook and a pen or pencil with you so we can go through this. If you've got your own Future CEO Playbook with you, like I said, this is module 2, so definitely open that up and follow through. If you don't have it yet, be sure to order it. It's at ashleeilg.com/playbook. You do not need it to go through these episodes, but again, it's a great accompaniment, and I'm super passionate about just teaching on this, inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs. You guys know that all about me. I'm not going to get into that every single episode, but let's get into this growth mindset and habits, okay? So when you think about some successful entrepreneurs that you already know of or maybe know personally, what would be some of the traits that you would say you can identify in them? That would be maybe across the board. I can tell that these successful business owners have in common, right? I mean, you'd probably think of things like they're steadfast, they don't get ruffled by, daily challenges, or maybe they, face some daily challenges, but they work through them. They kind of keep a cool, calm, collected, mentality about it. When things need to change, they're willing to change with it. How about gratitude? How about personal responsibility? Having gratitude and finding the good in the situation and the people that you're dealing with or working with, that's all part of this mentality and mindset as well. Being appreciative of the opportunity, not looking for freebies, not looking for people to just give you something or buy your stuff because they should. Again, that personal responsibility of nobody owes me anything. I want to earn this. I'm going to make this happen. And if it doesn't work the first time, I can try again. As a parent, and specifically as a homeschool parent myself, I can see so many opportunities where it's so easy to say things like, this is too hard for me, or I don't know this, or I'm not good at this. And it's really, really critical that we take those opportunities either as ourselves as the student or as the parent and say, of course you don't know this yet. You haven't learned it yet. Nobody knows anything until they've learned it, and nobody's good at anything until they've practiced it. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. And it seems maybe like a simple conversation to have, but it's amazing the difference it makes in their willingness to overcome and realize and accept the fact that, like, you know what, you're right. I have not learned this yet. I'm taking a deep breath and exhale of relief now that nobody expects me to be great at this right now or perfect at this. I've never tried this before, or I've not practiced it enough, or I've not practiced it enough as the other guy. My third son plays baseball, and it's a common thing where, it's like, well, that kid's been playing for years longer than you have. Do you think he's probably hit the ball and practiced and thrown and played catch probably a few more times than you have? Like he has every right to be further in the lineup or to, whatever it might be. And that's just one example, but we could go through academics, we could go through athletics. And again, in this case, we can talk about it in the case of business, right? Where some businesses are more successful because they've tried more. They've gotten up after more failures than you. One of our business mentors, maybe favorite quotes or just one that has always stuck with me is that he's like, I'm the biggest failure in the room, but that's also why I'm the most successful person in the room. And my husband could say the same thing about different businesses that, we've started as well, or it's like, the first couple of years, like in our golf cart dealership, as an example, oh my goodness, there were so many trials and errors. There were so many mistakes. We could have easily said, you know what, this is too hard. This is too hard. This is more than we thought we signed up for. This is not working the way we thought it would work. I'm just not willing to learn anymore. If I don't know it now, then this is as good as it's going to get. And this obviously isn't going to work, right? And we hear ourselves say that now when we realize that's so silly, and I guess it's fun to think about, what the advice that we would give somebody else who maybe was saying things like this. Well, let's give ourselves that same advice, let's try again. Let's not be so quick to give up. Let's change the way we're speaking. Let's change the way we are communicating even to ourselves. Let's change the excuses or the limited beliefs that we're having about what it is that we're excited to accomplish, right? And so, like I said, before we go into marketing and branding and creating logos and setting price points and customer avatars and all of those things, we're going to nail down this growth mindset, these CEO habits that really are tried and true for any successful entrepreneur out there. So here's some examples. If you find yourself saying something like, I'm not good at this, replace it with, but I can learn it with practice, right? How about, this is too hard? How about replacing that with, but hard things make me grow? Or I always say this to my kids, but it's not too hard for you, right? What about, I failed, completely defeated. I failed. Okay, well, what if we switch that with, you know what? I actually just learned one other way that this doesn't work, But we could look up so many examples, right, of how many times somebody failed, but they got up and tried again. And then that last time was when it worked, right? And that made all the difference. What about, I don't get it. I just don't get this yet. What if we replace that kind of defeated, give up statement, that attitude with, but I will. Just add a simple, but I will. And I know I will. And just that extra determination, that extra perseverance, that whole attitude of a winner, it will just take you so far. I can't emphasize it enough, in addition to like messages and ways that we communicate to ourselves, little pep talks we can give ourselves, shifts we can take with things that we're saying, or phrases that we've maybe gotten a little too comfortable saying to ourselves, little, I don't know, I don't want to keep saying excuses because I don't want to step on toes too much, but in addition to just kind of reframing the way we've said things or maybe thought about things, maybe given up a little bit too soon, we can also just look at our daily habits, right? Things like our time management, professional or successful CEOs, they don't procrastinate. Procrastination is considered a failure disease. If you have a habit of procrastinating and putting things off that you could get done sooner, that's not a habit of a successful business owner. Business owners get up early, they get started, they do the hard things first, get those out of the way, and then they play. They have that determination, that discipline to manage their time, to calendar plan, and to take it seriously, right? What about their resilience? We've talked about that a little bit with just having that perseverance of like, well, that didn't work the first time, but can I try it again, right? They bounce back when something doesn't go as they intended, or maybe it was a complete, flop. They have the character of, with some resilience, with a good bit of resilience. This is a big one about decision making. My husband and I talk about this all the time. The ability to make a decision, and it might go back to procrastination a little bit too, but the ability to assess the variables, assess the situation, realize, there's a lot of things to consider here, a lot of considerations, but I feel confident that I can make a decision, and more importantly, that I can make that decision the right decision, and maybe that seems too simplified, but if you never have the confidence or you prolong the decision-making process, that you lose any momentum, you might even lose opportunities. If other people involved, you may lose some enthusiasm and loyalty from others. It can really make or break, what you're trying to accomplish. And so being confident, having that ability to make some decisions, stand behind your decisions, be confident with those decisions, that's a huge piece of being a successful entrepreneur and having that growth mindset. So I'm going to just run through a little list. I just want you to kind of mentally check off if this sounds like you. Would you say that you like solving problems? And these should all answer yes. So if you can answer yes to these, that's great. If you can't, maybe put a little thumbnail in this, make a little jot in your notebook of things that you might want to improve or work on. Just focus and just make 1% improvement over time in these areas. It will make a huge difference. I can't overemphasize that. So you like solving problems. That doesn't overwhelm you. That doesn't stress you out. If you see a problem, do you freak out, or do you go, okay, let's figure this out? Do you get kind of excited about solving the problems? What about you stay curious and you ask good questions? There's so much information out there. When you hit a roadblock, do you get curious about ways to figure it out? Do you ask a lot of good questions? Do you use your resources wisely to get in good information? What about I like planning my day? Again, going back to your time management. Do you like having a structure to your day? Do you like having some goals for that day? And I'm not talking about a rigid, I wake up at this time, I brush my teeth at this time, I, do this work at this time. If that's you, that's fine too. But this is more just having those goals, having a little set structure of a little plan for your day so that those priorities don't get put off or brushed under the rug or, forgotten altogether, What about your work ethic? Would you say yes to the statement of I work hard? And work to me is fun, having that productive feeling, knowing that I've worked hard, I've put in the effort, I've accomplished what I set out to do. Do you enjoy that? What about I bounce back after making a mistake? Would you say that's true for you? Or do you feel like maybe you, it slows you down, maybe you start second guessing yourself, maybe you give up altogether? And if you've had a habit of that in the past, this is not the time to say, well, you're right, that's me, I'm done. That's the whole point of this episode, right? Is to talk about if that's the way you've done it in the past, it's time to start shifting that mindset and some habits. Because to be a successful CEO now and long term, it's going to take this success mindset, this resilient, determined, disciplined mindset. What about I'm not afraid to try something new? That's a good one, right? New things used to terrify me. I would just completely freeze up. I wouldn't know where to start. I would be completely overwhelmed and I'd be defeated before I even started, right? New things completely terrified me. I had to learn how to embrace just because it's new doesn't mean I can't learn it, doesn't mean it can't be familiar, right? And just really embracing learning something new and being okay to not know how to do it right away. What about I encourage others, right? There's a whole community piece of this and not being isolated and not feeling like, if they're winning, then I can't win, and having this scarcity mindset that I don't want to cheer them on because they might be my competition, right? That's completely opposite of what you want to be. You want to be an encourager of others. You want to be cheering on even your competition, right? Knowing that you're confident enough in your business and your abilities that you can encourage them at peace as well, right? And finally, I learned from people that I admire, right? Whether it's in a book, whether it's in a video, whether it's in person, finding people that have done something that you'd like to do or you want to do better and learning from them and taking the time to learn from them is a huge piece of having this growth mindset and being willing to learn, putting yourself in, situations where you might be uncomfortable, knowing that it's going to be worth it. It's going to help you get to that end goal, right? So I want you, as we kind of wrap up this episode, I want you to be thinking about what parts of your maybe morning routine or just day-to-day routine can you maybe take inventory of and realize it's maybe not as productive as it could be. Maybe it needs to go away altogether. Maybe you spend entirely too much time, on social media or video games or on the phone. And while those things are not bad in themselves, they can definitely be time thieves if we're not careful. So I want you to, go through your day-to-day, day in the life. I want you to think about things that you want to keep, maybe do more of or do better of. And then I want you to find some areas that maybe you've been spending too much time that is not productive, that it's not growing your business for one, but also it's not helping you develop that disciplined CEO, personality, and just be willing to make some changes and set a goal, 7 days, set a 7-day goal, track what you do, what you've changed, and do a little assessment after that and see how you feel about that. What changes have you already noticed? How has your mindset improved? How has your decision-making abilities improved? How has your confidence improved? It's amazing that even after just a few days, when you see that you set your mind to something, you set some goals, you stuck to it, and you start to see those changes happen, it's amazing how your mind just opens up and you just realize, oh my gosh, if I can do that, I can do it again, and I can improve even more ways. If you wanted to do a couple journaling prompts before you press play on the next episode, another good one would be to think about a time that you faced maybe a fear, maybe something big, maybe something small, not necessarily like a real danger or anything like that, but maybe just something perceived in your imagination that you were scared, you were afraid to do. How did you face it and what happened after you faced it? I think just reflecting back on that will give you a huge insight into, what you're capable of. Another great journaling prompt, if you love this, is to think about a time that you stood up for something that you believed in, even if nobody else did, even if you felt like you're all alone. I want you to journal about how that felt before and after, if you were scared to do it, if you were a little nervous, but how you felt afterwards and what was the result of your boldness. Did other people show up and stand up and say, you know what, you're right, I believe that too. Those are just a couple of my favorite, journaling prompts. I love to get an insight into what are you willing to stand up for? What are you willing to change? Again, it all goes back to that mindset, being willing to overcome, do hard things, not give up so quickly, and to keep trying. So before you press play on the next episode, take a minute, write those down, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in today. Before you go, it would mean the world to me and my family if you would share this episode with at least one person who you think might benefit from this message. And of course, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also follow me at Ashlee Ilg on Instagram to keep up with our adventures and for continued encouragement as you pursue your big ideas. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time.